Before we dive into this episode, I just want to let you know, if you want to get access to episodes before anybody else, head on over to patreon.com/concerts that made us. And as a bonus, you'll get access to videos of some of the episodes and a host of other benefits. We've also teamed up with Band Builder Academy to offer you 10% off their membership. Details of both can be found in the show notes below.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, Concerts That Made Us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts, concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Hey, this is Jeremy from the Dirty Skirts. You are listening to Concerts That Made Us.
Jeremy, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
It's such a pleasure to be here, Brian. Hello, everyone.
It's brilliant to have you now. I'm looking forward to getting some insights into your music. So, you guys just released a new EP, Radiant Clouds. It's your first release since winning the South African Music Award for Best Alternative Album of the Year for Lost in the Fall in 2012. First off, what can you tell us about the new EP?
Yeah, so the new EP is an exploration. We started writing during lockdown remotely, just sending files backwards and forwards in Ableton Live, and it was just amazing writing like that. Like the crazy thing is we hadn't written for like 8 years or whatever else it was, and it was just like bam, there was this energy, and there was the creativity. We have no idea exactly where we're going creatively. There's absolutely no plan. We're really just tumbling through the sky, and we may just obliterate ourselves when we land on the ground, but it's a beautiful, beautiful fall.
Right, right. And normally when a band wins like an award for best album, they keep going. What happened? Why has it taken so long?
We had such a good run. We started in 2004. And it was just like our experiences was in South Africa. We were just on this continual upward curve all the way through. And it was just this escalating thing of like, we started playing to 15 people wearing really horrible white suits because we thought that was cool for a few weeks before we ditched that. And then the clubs got bigger and the crowds got bigger. And then there was festivals, and then, releasing albums and releasing a lot of material. We became a big festival circuit kind of band. But just to give you a kind of a context is like, none of us had actually seen friends for a New Year's Eve for like 8 years or something like that. And people, we were all getting a bit older, and there, a stork dropped a few children down a few chimneys, and like life happened. And I think we were just like, oh, I think, we've done this. This is so beautiful. We're going to just stop doing it. And then, if we come back together, that's beautiful. But that was exactly the right thing to do at that time.
Yeah, yeah. And, was there any apprehension about releasing new music, getting back together and writing together again? Were you afraid maybe the fans wouldn't be there anymore?
Well, maybe not. I mean, I'd say the reality is that, like, the last time we released music, there were actually CDs involved. And a lot's changed in 10 years or 8 years. It's like, it's radical, and the environment's shifting all the time. We're all pretty digital marketing savvy and that kind of thing. But, we got like a ton of followers on Facebook, but, from back then. But like, if we post something new about the release, we get like 6 likes. So the engagement algorithms, we got to restart really everything. So I think it's more like, as opposed to being afraid of putting out material, it's more like just a little stone cold wake up to releasing material in 2023. We're gonna have to hustle in a different way. There was a time when we would stick and glue posters together and do like kind of crazy sort of artful things. Now we got to do that digitally.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I hate the algorithms, because I feel like if you mess up one post, that's it. You're gone for like 6 months. They're not going to show your stuff to anyone.
Dead in the water, exactly. Yeah, it's cold and it's cruel. It's the bots are cold and cruel, and yeah, we haven't quite worked out how to carry their favor. But we're making music. We're loving making music, and we got kind of a strong, let's just say, a strong hustle/game in us. Like we're good. We're lifers for this thing. Let's just say, and so it's really just a question of working out how to be as creative as possible with the constraints of having to do digital marketing. I mean, it's like, it sucks, but it's real.
Yeah. And once you guys were back together, did you notice that the sound or you guys had changed much?
Well, we'd already, as our albums had done a kind of a progression, and we always explored, like Lost in the Fall that we won the South African Music Award was kind of a little darker. It was definitely pre-apocalyptic kind of. There's always pre-apocalyptic tension in our music, and that's still there. I would just say maybe we like rounded out, like our waistlines had expanded, and you could feel that in the music a little bit. it's maybe a little bit less urgent, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll probably pull back some of that urgency. We were always a little bit urgent, as if we didn't have much time left, and what were we going to do with this short, sweet next moment?
The record, it seems very socially aware. What do you hope people get from it?
I've always like, as a lyricist, I've been dreaming about the waters rising forever. If you go back into our music from like 2006, there would be lines like Cape Town is under the ocean, bobbing bottles of suntan lotion, a coconut oil slick spreads out across the sea, coconut oil, suntan lotion. And it was always like the waters were going to rise and we're all going to die, without it being necessarily nihilistic or sad sack, thing like that. It's just been a kind of an underlayer amidst like really personal things. So like this, I'm also, I'm a trauma facilitator. I'm deeply interested in how we get wounded and depression and anxiety. And I've had my fair share of trauma and depression and anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So I love getting real about that stuff. If you listen to the new release, like Numb and Fronting that we released today, is really just about being shut down, totally messed up, but kind of just putting out that face to the world as so many of us do. And so it's kind of like, there's stories of getting real, but also it's called Radiant Clouds for a reason, finding the radiance in a way, even if it's a chemical haze cloud glinting in the sun, it's still beautiful. That chemtrail is so beautiful in the sky.
Right. And I suppose at this stage, we'll dive into your history to give the listeners a sense of where you came from musically. So if you can you remember your earliest musical memory?
Ooh, that'll be from my father, who was not a musician or is not a musician, but was an avid collector. Back in the day, he used to get those gramophone magazine or gramophone books of ratings of all the best music. This is long before Pitchfork or anything. So I was brought up around a lot of really good music. So I remember just being actually on a deck in Toronto, a wooden deck in summer, and beautiful music being played and people dancing. And so I was brought up around a ton of music.
Oh. And, during your teenage years then, what kind of music were you being exposed to, and how do you think it eventually influenced you into the musician you are today?
It really, really, really did, actually. I just loved kind of gothic, post-punk kind of music, and some electronica, but a lot of that stuff. And so, so it was a deep influence, like bands like The Cure and Joy Division, and then shoegazy kind of music like My Bloody Valentine, and a lot of that kind of stuff is there, even though we've traveled our own path.
Ah. And what was the local music scene like now when you were coming up? Was it very vibrant? Was there plenty of gigs to go to?
No, that was the weird thing, is we arrived at this weird kind of lull in the Cape Town and South African scene. And there were a few of us bands. There were some absolutely mesmerizing other bands, and we all just like erupted at the same time. And there was just like a ton of energy. And it kind of coincided a little bit with the indie explosion of 2005, 6, 7, and whether it was like down, bum, 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 or the Killers, or Block Party, or whatever the heck else it was. It just happened. We all had similar music roots to those bands, so our timing was just really good. Anyway, so there was a scene, and it exploded at the time that we exploded. Our timing was just lucky. So, but we went from like small clubs to suddenly there were TV cameras all over the place. We were just like, we were shitting ourselves a lot on the ascent.
Yeah, I could imagine. Oh my goodness. And a bit of a tough question, but looking back at those days then, what do you credit your success with?
I think it was timing. I'd say energy. We had like a lot of energy. We were pretty artful, I suppose, at the time, and we were taking a lot of risks and playing, and everything was just about breaking rules and doing things differently. So I'd say that. I'd say some savvy, we worked hard on our marketing too, like we were just like, we want to do this and we want people to hear us. And so if that involves slapping up posters at 3 a.m. with glue onto all the walls, then we'll just do that. So I'd say that, and then just some the music also caught people. We started with just like a drum machine and three of us and a lot of effects in the music. If you listen to our first EP, which is on Spotify and all the things, we had a drum machine then. So we were just like a kind of a weird band with a drum machine and three of us playing this kind of weird indie-ish stuff. Some of those tracks are cool, and some of them are, just like a little lame, and what happens.
I can't wait to hear about this now. As a concert goer, what concerts do you think have made you?
So one concert that is etched, like burnt into my cranium in black gold, was The Cure, supported by Love and Rockets, who were ex-Bauhaus, and the Pixies.
Oh my God.
It was just unbelievable. And I would say just another huge one would be Radiohead. Saw them in Spain, and I just, I love them. And that was just like me and thousands of Spaniards crying,
And what makes a good show for you? What needs to happen for you to walk away from that gig saying that was one of the best I've seen?
Yeah, I would say one is energy. Two is authenticity. So one is just energy, like this ability to capture kilowatts of turbocharged power, of like a kind of superhuman power levels. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of worked out how to do live. I don't know, it just sort of came naturally that we'd push each other around the stage, and we'd just get naughty and bad. And we used to drink too much initially until we learned that we were really shocking as a live band when we were completely drunk out of our skulls. So we couldn't do that anymore because this is bad for shows. But lots of energy, I'd say emotion and real connection with the audience, like really being prepared to go to places. I think those are some of them: emotion and intensity and energy and just authenticity, like realness with that stuff. But it's kind of weird because it's like hyper real too. It's not just like I'm going to be my lazy belly scratching Netflix watching self in front of 10,000 people. But it's being willing to slow things down, like, just everything. Let's just stop and slow everything down. Everyone's amped. It's just like slow down and then slowly build again into the apocalypse.
And now this one, for any listeners that haven't caught one of your shows, what can they expect? Give them the full experience if you can.
I would just say like a ton of energy. So imagine like a cross of maybe I'm flattering us a little bit. Freddie Mercury meets David Bowie meets maybe Red Hot Chili Peppers from a kind of an energy point of view. We jump, we it's just we're flying and but there's also a lot of love in it, but there's also some wildness. Yeah. I think that's what it is. Kind of loving and wild and crazy and but also hopefully deep, like an experience where we feel things too.
Sounds like one hell of a time. Now, in the past, you've toured the UK and the USA, and you've shared the stage with Oasis, Snow Patrol, Evanescence, Three Doors Down, Billy Talent, and Stained. When you're playing on that level, what do you learn?
Sure. I love those stages, but it's also like, it's so darn real. Like I always tell a story of playing in front of 25,000 people in Johannesburg. We're supporting Oasis and Snow Patrol and a ton of folk. And it's in Johannesburg, it's at altitude and it's dry. And like, it's so dry that it just wicks all the moisture out of your vocal cords unless you live up there. And I got up there and I had some big frogs in my throat in the middle of some of our sort of hit singles, that kind of stuff. And I did fine, but it was not amazing. But I got off the stage mortified. It's just not good enough. And I'm always just thoughtful about, the number of times I've watched Adele, at least twice, absolutely murdered, but not in a good way, her performances at the Grammys. And I suppose what I'm saying is like the production values are so incredible, and it's so incredible doing those shows, but it's also so utterly humbling, and it's so human, and it's so imperfect. And most people don't necessarily hear those imperfections. Anyway, so it's just like it's a very dramatically human and hyper real and awesome experience at the same time. It's very difficult to parse the humanity of it and the kind of ultra humanity of it. And sometimes that can leave you, it can fuck with your personality and your ego and who you think you are. I've become some distorted versions of myself along the way.
Right, right. Yeah. And out of all the gigs you've played in, is there one that sticks out in your mind as maybe the best experience you've had?
I've got two. One is the show after that one where I in Johannesburg, where my voice cracked and it was not great, because the next day we played in Cape Town, and it was it was on a massive farm, again 20-something thousand people, and just a massive crowd, but mountains all around, because Cape Town's so beautiful, and it was a summer's day and it was just glorious. And that day it was just one of those things where the stars aligned, and we nailed it. And it's just not always like that. And another one that I'll mention is in Cape Town, there's the National Gardens that are right adjacent to Table Mountain. And it's just this mountain pouring up. And there's a show there where you play to, say, 5,000-10,000 people at the Kirstenbosch Gardens. And it's probably the most beautiful live venue on planet Earth. I mean, I love Cape Town, but it really is. And so just surrounded by that amount of nature and beauty and a lot of families picnicking and all this kind of thing, it's really, really beautiful. And I'll never forget that day also, because our guitarist, he had produced a daughter at that point, and she was at the show. And I remember us sound checking and then him going out and swinging her around him on the grass. And it was just like, it's just like life. It's beautiful life.
Yeah, that actually sounds like one of the most perfect memories. And not to get too negative now, but to flip it around, is there one that maybe sticks in your head as the worst experience, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there were plenty that were super crappy, like getting up to a festival stage, you're putting in-ears into your ears, you're plugging these things in, so now you're walled off inside this. But when you turn it on and you start the first song, you basically got roaring white noise going into your ear because the monitoring engineer has totally screwed it. And you're in front of 10,000 people rocking out, but you can't even really hear the drums keep time, sing in tune. So stuff like that just happens, Maybe, I don't know if it just happens in South Africa, but a bunch of crappy stuff like that. I would say that would probably be just, I mean, I can't specify a single one, and I'd say we just learned over time. There were times when, like, I remember us playing a festival up near Durban and finishing off a bottle of tequila and more before getting on stage and like falling all over the stage. That was probably around the time when we decided, actually, I think we need to grow up a little bit if we're going to keep doing this, Like actually physically falling off the stage is not a great look.
I wouldn't think so, no. Jeez. And what have you guys been doing to prepare for live shows now after such an absence?
For example, I sing, I mean, I train my voice every day, and I'm rehearsing the set every day. And we'll only be playing our first shows in October. So I'm like ironing out every last kink now, and also just getting into moving again. So just like here, there's the microphone. There's an amp down here. There's the guitar, and so on. So we're just getting ready to go, and yeah, and so that's it. It's really just practice. So we're practicing alone at first, and then we'll get into a room and just kind of turn up the heat.
Yeah, yeah. And back in those days where the shows were, nearly all the time, what was your pre-show and post-show ritual? How did you psych yourself up, and how did you calm down afterwards?
Yeah, initially, we psyched ourselves up with tequila until that didn't work anymore. And then after that, I can't even remember actually what we did, but we definitely had rituals and we definitely hang out together and really kind of get aligned. We'd sing together to warm up. We'd have the huge hug and really just like a kind of a mutual appreciation before going on. And I'd say the same afterwards, like a warm down and just like, okay. And then go and talk to people and be with family and friends. And yeah.
Say you played a massive stage, 25,000 people on a Friday night. You wake up Saturday morning. You kind of have the post-gig, post-tour blues. How did you used to deal with it?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, like trying to like go out and go get a coffee in the morning. It's very weird trying to occupying both universes at the same time. I mean, ultimately playing, it might look like something extraordinary, but everything becomes normal, and it's your job, and it's the most beautiful thing to do. So you just come home and you wash your face and you're buzzed as you're so buzzed, and so like getting unbuzzed is a bit of an issue before sleeping. And then you wake up the next day and it's just real life. But it is simultaneously this sort of weird paradox of like, how do I move from that to simple things? It does involve in a way like a lot of grounding and like exercise and just seeing friends who are, just see you as you, and so just reintegrating like that, because it can distort you.
Yeah.
If you're identifying with that other reality as yourself.
Mm. Would you find then that friends and people you knew beforehand would kind of treat you differently or start to look at you differently?
I kind of was going to say yes and no, because yes, I suppose they were along for the journey, but also no, like that's what's so helpful about friends is I mean, it's exciting for everyone. We're all at the show and then partying together afterwards or whatever else it is. And so if there was a whole scene for us all to enjoy, let's just say, but it was far beyond our band. But it's also like that level of connection and checking in and just talking about real life stuff. That's actually like the lifeline. I mean, it's the lifeline for all of us. And I'd say that's the stuff that kept me sane, was connection and just like not being anybody. Because it's also weird. Like for many years, I couldn't get really through a South African shopping center without signing autographs, that sort of stuff. And that stuff plays with your head.
I could imagine. And when you toured the UK and the USA, I imagine once you came back, other people in the music scene probably looked at you guys differently. Did this like, oh, these guys are big shots now. They've been overseas.
Oh, there was maybe some of that, like, the reality of touring in those places was very, very gritty. It wasn't like we were playing, the O2 Arena or anything like that. So we were doing the hard yards. Actually, in South Africa, we were playing much bigger shows. So if nothing else, actually, more than anything else, actually, it was more of the festival stages that we played in here in South Africa that really stuck in people's minds, and they were the ones that they'd see online and that kind of thing. Yeah.
And nowadays, compared to back then, how would you measure success? What does success mean to you?
I'd say the very, very, very first thing is enjoyment and the health of it. Not just having fun, but just like the emotional health, the mental and emotional health, the sense of alignment to, in my life and in our lives. So that involves also the relationships between us as we make. I have to say that they feel healthier than ever now. It's just like a little bit more older and generous, and some of those edgy edges have softened, and so the primary would be that, but also then the creativity, like really putting out good work. I feel more, even more focused about producing significant or quality work. Like I'd say I've never focused as much, for example, lyrically on getting every last syllable to be impeccable or as close as I can get to it. So I suppose that it would be beautiful to get people to hear it and to have some success. It's not the primary driver, but at the same time, any artist who says they produce work with no interest in an audience is probably lying. Um, and so I'm not going to lie about that.
And say 30, 40 years' time, then you look back at your career. What do you hope your legacy is?
I'd say by the end of the span of it all, I'd like to have put out a body of beautiful work that contributes, that's healthy in a way. You know, our music has evolved. I'd say even the lyrical content, we were like really naughty 12 years ago, but it wasn't necessarily particularly woke. And it's not about being woke or not woke. It's more just about it's just about positively contributing and without trying too hard, like making art. But I'm going to say even making art with some heart in it and the willingness to be authentic, even about our like crappiest parts and our like most shut down, shamed parts. They're all welcome to the party. So it's like authentic, beautiful work. That's what I'd like for us to have made.
Right, right. And before we dive into the last couple of questions, then, future plans, lay it all out first. Where do you go from here?
Yeah, so we've got these giant folders of sketches and it's just like mushrooming. I think we've this EP of 3 tracks. We'd already had something like 60, 70 ideas that we were picking those 3 from and the mushroom cloud or the mushroom just keeps growing. And so we're going to just keep releasing more material. Yeah, and then we're working towards October onwards, starting to play shows again. And I think I think we'd like to put out some intelligent content. Like that's part of the art. Let's just say now, and it wasn't so much when we were last at this. So I think we would like to work out how to do that. So it's really just make music and play.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I have to ask, I'm from Europe, so are you guys going to eventually come back over here or go to the States?
Yeah, we'd really, really love to. So we're kind of beginning the work on that. Uh, yeah, we really, really, really want to. Our sound I think, is pretty friendly for like a UK, Ireland kind of market and New York market and that sort of stuff. It's kind of indie and yeah.
Yeah, it definitely goes down well over here anyway. And we'll dive into the last few. So we'll start you off easy. If you weren't a musician, what do you think you'd be doing?
Well, I already do, I'm a trauma facilitator and I work with people's voices, but also work with a ton of trauma. And so I do that. I will never not be a musician. Like it would be a little bit like putting out the fires inside. I think it would just be like my whole system would just power down and I'd cease to exist. But I love to help supporting people to be emotionally healthy and helping them get through really hard things. I've done a lot of my, to that journey myself. So I like to share that. And I love to pour that into the music too. It's just like the real gritty reality of being a kind of a functioning, healthy, loving human being on this earth. It's not always easy. For some people, they had charmed families and that's awesome. And just, they kind of got off scot-free, but there are a ton of other folk who ended up needing to do a lot of work to even just to function. So I'm kind of in their camp and I like being in that support crew.
Yeah, yeah. And right, this will be interesting. If you could see any performer from history in concert for one night only, who would it be?
Great question. I think I would probably teleport back and take a tab of acid and watch Jimi Hendrix.
That would be a pretty sweet night, all right. Oh man. Yeah. And we'll get slightly weird now. If you had to be locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be for 24 hours?
24 hours. I think it might be Tom York.
Right, right. Really?
Yeah. I'd like to talk to him. You know what? I'm going to take that back. I'm taking it back. I'm choosing Nick Cave.
Right.
I hang out with Nick Cave. I like to talk poetry and lyrics and life. I don't know how much time you spent around his Red Hand files and his writing. He's just a brilliant writer and a huge heart and a soul.
I feel like it'd be a very deep 24 hours, though.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it wouldn't be the most playful. True that.
Yeah.
Who would you choose?
Who would I choose? Oh, God. I feel like it changes daily, but someone that I always come back to is Jim Morrison, even though it wouldn't be the healthiest 24 hours.
You need a little therapy afterwards, but it'd be pretty awesome that 24.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. And the final one. So, if there was a song to appear on the soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
I'm going to go with the single that we released a few weeks ago, Blue Jean Skies. That's a really personal story about the first time I fell in love. And I thought I wanted to be with her forever. And then I froze. I was like a block of wood around her, even though we were going out. And I lost all my spontaneity and joy. And it was just like falling apart really slowly while being completely smitten with someone. And at the same time, and that song has got this total bittersweetness of just like this blue jean skies. I'm like, young, and the sky is blue jean colored, and there are these radiant clouds, and there's just this terror of being a human being. And I love the emotion in it. I love the groove in it, which is a bit of an Afrobeat groove. I'd play that one. And when I originally sketched it, it started off as like an Aphex Twin style selected ambient works, ambient piece, and then developed into this kind of Afrobeat, electronica kind of thing. I love that song. So I'd love you all to listen to it.
Has to be that one. So listen, Jeremy, I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks a million for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, Brian. It's been awesome talking to you too. Thank you for the exposure and for doing what you do.
Lying down on our backs on the grass, staring up at the sky, mile high blue. How you laugh, dented smile, and the clouds make a face. And I ache. Little dew in your eyes, floating through all the sounds, cicada blues, anxious leaves. Oh, my sweet buttercup, on your skin says you too. But do you? Radiant clouds and blue jean skies. Then you cried and
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're interested in signing up to Band Builder Academy, use the link in the show notes below and enter the code CONCERTS and you'll receive 10% off. So, until next time, keep rocking.
Hey, what are you guys still doing here? The show's over. It's over. You can go home. Go on. We'll see you next time. We'll be here. Bye.